Good morning and welcome to News and Views. This week marks a critical moment in the struggle for justice and liberation in Palestine as activists and organizations around the world mobilize for the week of action to free Ahmed Saidat and all Palestinian prisoners. Ahmed Saidat, the General Secretary of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, has been imprisoned for 23 years, first by the Palestinian Authority under security coordination with the Zionist occupation, and later abducted by the Israeli regime. His imprisonment is emblematic of a wider plight of Palestinian political prisoners who face daily repression, abuse, and violence while standing on the front lines of resistance against occupation and apartheid. And joining us is Mohammed Khatib. He's from the Samidun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, and we'll be discussing the global mobilization efforts, the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and the critical role of Palestinian prisoners movement in the broader struggle for liberation. Brother Mohammed, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us. I really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Wa alaikum assalam, and thank you so much for the invitation. And we really appreciate the Salam Media solidarity work and your stand with Palestine and with justice. Thank you again for
Mm.
having me.
No, the pleasure is all ours. I think first and foremost we can start with just the overview of the campaign. If you can, kick off by telling us about the week of action to free Ahmed Saidat and what its main goals and significance, and also just a background on Ahmed Saidat for those who might not know who he is and what he's all about.
I mean, Ahmad Sadat, he's one of the great leaders of the Palestinian people, that they come from different political and ideological background. Of course, Ahmad Sadat is the General Secretariat of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, but he is a important leader within the Palestinian political prisoners movement that is represented by all the other Palestinian factions and political parties like Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Fatah, and many other groups that are fighting for the liberation of Palestine. Ahmed Sadat, he is a teacher, he is a steadfast struggler, freedom fighter, a serious political and respected leader, progressive leftist, supporting the feminist struggle, supporting the oppressed people struggle in Palestine, and also leading the struggle internally within the Palestinian society against so-called the PA and the liquidation program. He came to the leadership of the PFLP in a very significant and difficult time when the PFLP was facing elimination, and also the voices of the resistance. Ahmed Sadat is one of the leaders who stood up against the Oslo agreement and led the PFLP to be part in this camp to oppose Oslo agreement and to call for alternative path, not alternative from resistance, but a resistance path that can be and provide an alternative to the Palestinian people from so-called the Palestinian Authority, who is doing today clearly security coordination and standing on the side of the Zionist enemy. I mean, this campaign, can Samidun call for it almost for about more than 10 years now, much more, where we call for a protest not only for the liberation of Ahmed Sadat, but also to connect his case with the other political prisoners, and also to highlight on the facts that the enemy of the Palestinian people is not only the Zionist state of Israel, but also the Palestinian and Arab traitors and puppets of imperialism and capitalism and Zionism. And this campaign is very important because it kind of shows the future of Palestine even after liberation. The struggle for justice and equality will always continue and be there, and that's why Ahmed Sadat is very important. Ahmed Sadat faced all forms of imprisonment. Of course, as you mentioned, he has been in prison for more than 23 years, where he was under heavy interrogation. He was in solitary confinement. He faced all type of torture, detention, administration detentions, and so on. So he's an example of the leadership of the Palestinian people. He is part of the true leadership of the Palestinian people, and this is what the Palestinian people deserve. Such a leadership that can be equivalent with their level of resistance and sacrifice for future and for free Palestine from the river to the sea.
Mm, And I think that's one thing that's really really interesting for me regarding this campaign is the fact that although the focus is on Ahmad Saidat, but there's also a big call to free all the other Palestinian political prisoners. Let's chat a bit about the conditions of Palestinian prisoners and their treatment, especially since October 2023. It has been described as inhumane and as an organization that's so closely tied and has worked with some of these prisoners. What are they telling you? What are the current conditions of these prisoners in Israeli prisons, and what risks do they face on a daily basis?
I mean, assassination. After the 7th of October, the Palestinian political prisoners are just facing assassination, torture, preventing them from medication, rights in the rooms on daily basis. We have martyr in prison somehow after the 7th of October. We don't have a clear number of the Palestinians who are today officially in prisons by the Zionist state of Israel. All methods and types of torture that reach out to arrive to death. This is what the prisoners are facing today. The Zionist enemy today are fighting the prisoners with scabies, right? With the illness, like with the disease of scabies, like kind of making it inside the prison and manufacture it for the prisoners to suffer from it, and they are preventing them from the medication of this. So the situation is just torture and assassination. I can say it in two words. And also looking back before the 7th of October, uh, every single rights the Palestinian political prisoners have and has inside the prison, it was through struggle. It was through heavy hunger strikes and battles that were done and taken inside the prisons and behind the bars, where the prisoners participated in a big collective hunger strikes, for example, to secure the right of a pillow and a blanket and the right of education, the right of cooking inside the cells, and so on. Every single right, literally, from even the outfit, the dress that the Palestinian political prisoners have, it costed martyrs, it costed the blood, it costed isolation and solitary confinement and heavy torture.
Mm, mm, mm,
And also
mm.
many,
Yep.
it's important to mention that many of the laws that the Zionist state of Israel used against the Palestinian people, the most famous one is the so-called administration detention. This was not invented by the Zionist state of Israel. This was not invented by the Zionist colonial movement. This was practiced against the Palestinian people by the during British colonialism in Palestine, and this is where also the Palestinian resistance goes by and started. Everyone is mentioning nowadays that yes, the Palestinians have been fighting before the 7th of October. The Palestinians have been fighting from the 60s or even from the 40s. I would say the Palestinians have been fighting since the Great revolution, we call, against British colonialism in 36, 37, where the Palestinian people stood up against British colonialism and the Zionist enemy at the same time.
No, quite concerning stuff. And I think in a lot of ways it resembles what South Africa was also going through during, apartheid, where you would have these literally prisons filled with black South Africans, and it was without any kind of trial. They'd
Yeah.
hold them for years and years and years without any formal trial. So detention
Mhm.
without trial during the apartheid era was quite big, and you could tell that apartheid Israel has pulled a page out of that book, and they're using it now to further oppress the people of Palestine. I want to touch a bit on the Palestinian Authority. It has been quite in the spotlight and criticized heavily for its role in detaining resistant leaders like Ahmed Saidat. Can you elaborate on the PA's quote unquote security coordinations and how it impacts the Palestinian liberation struggle?
I mean, the PA itself as an institution and every move they do, it's a institution and a tool to serve the Zionist enemy. It's a tool to implement the Zionist enemy project inside the West Bank and Gaza. We have to mention that the PA was a big part of the siege of Gaza, right? When we say the Gaza Strip was under siege from 2006, this siege was not only by Israel. There was the PA, there was the Egyptian fascist regime of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi as well, participated in this siege against the Palestinian people. The PA kind of dominate and manipulate the Palestinian people by controlling their economical institutions and the institutions who should take care of the injured and the martyrs and the prisoners, who take care of giving some monthly salaries for the pension of the freedom fighters and so on. This is the institution that was manufactured by the EU and by the West. I mean, if we look at the funding of the PA, where the money of the PA come from? The money of the PA come from the EU, from the European Union, from the United States of America, and from the Arab reactionary regimes like Saudi Arabia and Emirates. Do we believe that the EU, who is one of the biggest colonial institutions, will pay any people who are fighting for their liberation to be liberated from colonialism? Do we believe that the United States of America fund any projects in the Middle East to protect the people of the Middle East and the peoples of Palestine? Of course not. The PA is just a tool for imperialism and capitalism. They are part of the Arab puppets regimes and uh, collaborator with the enemy. And I think the Palestinian people are not special in this case. Every case was fighting, every people was fighting for the liberation. The enemy managed to manufacture somehow a tool within this national liberation movement that somehow collaborate and work more with the Zionist entity. The biggest problem with the PLO started after the so-called PLO signed what so-called Oslo Agreement. I think this happened in the same time also with the agreement that took place for South Africa, where the PLO, Arafat, recognized the Zionist state of Israel. First of all, as Palestinian people, we don't recognize the Zionist state of Israel. So the PLO and the PA started on this path by not representing the Palestinian people, by going against the will and the political will of the Palestinian people. And also, this means that they went against the the main core why they should exist. The PLO means the Palestinian Liberation Organization. How come a liberation organization recognize its enemy and the enemy of the people and recognize colonialism and give Israel rights over the biggest part of Palestine, more than 75% of the land of Palestine? We in Samidun, we in the Palestinian Alternative Path, we have been saying since our foundation that this authority is part of the enemy of the Palestinian people, will not and will never hesitate to open fire not only against the resistance. This is what we see now in West Bank clearly, in Jenin, in Nablus, in Tulkarem, where the PA is literally attacking the Palestinian freedom fighters, but they will open fire against the people of Palestine. They will be ready to push for any future civil war to protect their authority. The moment they will feel their so-called authority, hegemony, and control, that they are benefiting the few businessmen who benefit from the existence of the occupation and the 1% Palestinian bourgeoisie, of course, when they will feel that they are losing these privileges that they have from the occupation, they will not hesitate to assassinate the Palestinian people and to open fire against the peoples of Palestine to protect this authority and to protect the occupation. And this is the danger about this authority creating fragmentation and creating a social problem within the Palestinian society in a time where we are facing genocide, in a time where we are facing ethnic cleansing, the highest level of imprisonments and and repression. Unfortunately, we see the Palestinian Authority stand on the side of the Zionist enemy.
Mm, mm,
We have many examples in this, right? It's very similar to Vichy government and many other puppets who were servant for colonialism and for occupation.
mm, mm. There's been talks of a potential ceasefire, and talks of potential prisoner exchanges between the Palestinian resistance and the Israeli occupying forces. How crucial is this moment going to be, especially for leaders like Ahmed Sadat, and what role will they be playing, or what role do you think they'll be playing in these negotiations?
I mean, they are, of course, important factor of this negotiation. I don't think they are part of the negotiations as prisoners, but we have full trust on our resistance. This negotiation and this deal is, of course, crucial. This was one of the biggest points of the 7th of October great operation, is mainly to exchange with the Palestinian political leaders, because those leaders will have a role to play after their liberation. I think this is how we will get managed to get rid of the so-called Palestinian Authority. We need Ahmad Sadat to be out of prison. We need Marwan al-Barghouti. We need the leaders of the Palestinian resistance to be out of the prison, to lead the Palestinian people to the victory, and that's why they are in prison. We need George Brahim Abdullah, who is in prison in France for more than 37, 38 years now, for to be liberated. We need their liberation more than they need their liberation. We need them with us. We need their symbolical position. We need their experience. We need their sacrifice. We need their spirit. As leaders, our people need them, and that's why this exchange is a must and should be done. And also, we are proud and we salute this resistance in Gaza, who managed to keep the hostages safe, and to manage to still steadfast until now, to go on deal, so-called the deal with the Zionist enemy, which is exchange. And as an organization like Samidun, who mainly focus on the liberation of political prisoners, we never claim that as a mass organization or a people's organization we manage to liberate one political prisoner or to lift the pain and the suffering on one political prisoners. What we do, we campaign, we try to be the voice of the political prisoners, but who will liberate the prisoners is the resistance, and this was proven by the history of the Palestinian people. Every time there was an exchange, every time there is a prisoners who are liberated from prison, they were liberated by the Palestinian armed resistance, not by Amnesty, not by the PA, not by HRW, not by any NGO. Only the Palestinian resistance in our history was capable to liberate our people and to liberate our prisoners and hopefully our land.
Mm, mm, mm. And just lastly, before I let you go, I would like to touch on the event that just happened before you went on air. You were telling me that you were just visited by the police out in Brussels. Do you mind sharing a bit more information on that, just to show the world that activism and solidarity, particularly Palestinian solidarity in Europe, is proving to be a challenge. You are attacked on all fronts. You're accused of all kinds of things just because you stand with the people of Palestine, and this is happening in Europe, where you seemingly world leaders when it comes to the right of association and freedom of speech and the likes.
I mean, Europe is not Europe is part of the genocide. Europe as a political system, I'm speaking. The EU, the European Union, and the European governments, they are involved in the genocide. Israel will never exist for 1 hour without the supplies and support that is getting from Europe and from the imperialist United States. Europe consider Israel as a European territory. Israel itself is just an advanced European Western white colony in Palestine, very similar to South Africa experience and other countries who faced colonialism. So Israel is involved in the genocide, is involved in the suffering and blood of the Palestinian people. And of course, in the same time, in Europe, as much as we have enemies of the Palestinian people, we have alliance and we have friends and we have comrades who are struggling with us, who also paid the blood to sacrifice for the liberation of Palestine. So some of them were martyred, some of them were imprisoned, some of them were injured. We have a great mass movement and people who are Muslims, black, Arabs, coming from different backgrounds, refugees, migrants, LGBT, every oppressed community today standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people in Europe. We see amazing, great movement where also the Jewish community is part of calling for free Palestine from the river to the sea. This means that the Zionist narrative and the colonial narrative is losing. The narrative of liberation is winning, and the people are seeing the reality and the truth. This is one part. But of course, the activism for Palestine is criminalized. And here I would love to touch on 2 points. First of all, because of racism, and they don't want to accept that the Palestinian people who live in Europe today, who have opinion and they can participate in politics and any the so-called democratic system. Me as a Palestinian who live in Belgium, I am also, as much as I am Palestinian, as much I am Belgian, and as much I should and I have to be involved in the local politics against racism and against fascism and against capitalism and the current system we live in. So they are scared from the Palestinian people to be organized politically and to be part of the political struggle that not only advocate for free Palestine but also engage the refugees and the migrants in the local struggle here for liberation also and for justice and for equality and against European colonialism. This must be stopped in Palestine but also in Congo, in Sudan, and many elsewhere. Israel, Europe should stop interfere in Syria and Iraq and playing this imperialist role. And Europe need to be defeated also from within, as the United States of America. The masses in Europe, the people of Europe, have a strong responsibility throughout this colonial system that. People still around the world, millions of people around the world, still suffering from this and paying a heavy price for Europe to have a 24-hour electricity and privileges of pension and health insurance and so on. All of this is provided in Europe in our understanding, not because the people of Europe are just good people and paying taxes, but this is because there is European colonial machine, non-stop machine is operating in Asia, in Latin America, and elsewhere in the world, and this must be stopped. As the Palestinians, as we are committed to fight the Zionist enemy, but we know as well that our enemy is much bigger than the so-called Zionist enemy. Our enemy is the Western and colonial white supremacist racist movement that's funding this occupation that used to fund apartheid in South Africa and elsewhere. So, of course, activism for Palestine is challenging. Being refugee and migrant in Europe is challenging. Europe in its peak, where you can see this high contradiction raising up between left wing and right wing. We see right wing fascist forces coming to power in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Germany, in Spain, even, and in many other countries where those fascist groups are winning the election. This represents something for the future of Europe, and that's why we say the liberation of Palestine is as it's important for the liberation of the Palestinian people, but dismantling these colonies in Palestine, in the United States, in Latin America, in Africa is also important for the people of Europe to live in the future in hegemony and in peace and in equality. We cannot take the burden of colonialism and genocide today as a society in Europe that we are responsible for it. We shouldn't be responsible for it. We should stand on the right side of history.
No, definitely. And I think we're going to leave it on that note. Brother Mohammed Khatib coming to us live from Brussels. Really, really appreciate you giving us your
Thank you
time.
so
And,
much.
and I'm sure we'll be chatting in the not so distant future.
Thank you, thank you, and salute to all the peoples of South Africa who are standing in solidarity with Palestine. And we feel that we have a home in Africa, and Palestine
Definitely,
is part of this struggle. Thank you so
definitely.
much.
Yeah, there you have it, Mohammed Khatib. They're just giving us insight on the week of action. This is 23 years of injustice, and this week aims to free Ahmed Saidat and all Palestinian prisoners. So go out there, social media, make sure that you tweet about it, you Facebook about it, you TikTok about it, because it's going to be a very, very important weekend. Before I wrap up, this hour of news and views is sponsored by Africa Muslims Agency. Africa Muslims Agency, a beacon of hope to communities over 35 years in Africa and beyond. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views continues.